everyone, it's Kim at Foggy Bonnet. I've been working with the Warm and Toasty stamp set a lot this past week. It's a stamp set with really cute characters and a few Christmassy sentiments. It does not have coordinating dies, and that's fine. I mean, you can use punches or shape dies like rectangles and circles or ovals to cut out your stamped images, but sometimes I like to get a little more detailed cut around images. And an example would be I made this snow globe and I wanted to use the bunnies in the sleigh singing. Aren't they cute? And so I wanted to get a little more detailed cut around that for in my snow globe. And I'm not a big fan of fussy cutting. In fact, it's just not my favorite thing to do. Let's put it that way. But I am fortunate enough to have a scan and cut, and I just wanted to share with you today the method that I use to cut out images like this. I'm sure, as with most things crafty, there are many ways to go about it. But if you have a scan and cut and you haven't used it to cut out stamped images, maybe I can show you how to do that. First, I'm going to stamp my image. I'm going to do the baby polar bear here. And I'm actually going to do two while I'm at it. So once I have the images stamped, I use a fairly fine tip black marker. This is a 0.4. It's just an artist liner marker. I use black, but you could use any dark color as long as it makes a solid line and will show up well when you scan it. I draw just a contour around the stamped image, and I draw it about, I'd say a little more than 1/8 of an inch away, not quite 1/4 of an inch away. And I just pick a spot and start, and I just follow the contour of the stamped image. And I don't get too concerned about following every little indentation or detail. Usually when I cut images out with dies, dies don't cut out every little indentation either. It's just kind of a general contour around. So there's one. I'm going to do this other one. And if it's not perfectly even all the way around, if your line isn't the same distance from the stamped image all the way around, don't worry about it. It's okay. Usually when I cut out a stamped image with a die, I don't always have the die centered precisely, so one side may have a little more white border than the other. So now I have these outlined, and I'm going to mount them on my adhesive sheet that I'll run through the scan and cut to scan these images. Okay, pardon my shaky camera, but I'm holding my phone in my hand right now. So you can see I have the images on my tacky sheet, and I'm just going to scan those as I normally would. And I'm just going to do direct cut right now. And let it scan. And this isn't intended to be a full-blown instructional on how to use your Brother scan and cut. I'm assuming a lot here. I'm assuming that you know how to do some of these basic things, but I just wanted to show you how I use this scan and cut to cut out stamped images. So there are my two stamped images, and I'm going to say okay. And then I'm going to bring in this border so that I get rid of all the extraneous marks from my very dirty mat. And we'll take a look at that. So I've brought that in. I've eliminated all the extraneous marks. I say okay. Now I want to edit So I've got the first one selected, and just to make sure I don't have anything extra on there, I'm going to go like that. So it looks like I do only have the two things selected, or the two things on my scan, which is good. So I say okay. Now I want to create an offset, and I want to offset it negative 0.04. And what that'll do is it will create a cut that's just inside my drawn marks. And now I will cut. I've brought my two images back over, and I'm going to just lift this up so you can see. Sorry about the shaking phone. It cut, the scan and cut just inside my drawn line. I probably could have gone negative 0.05 on this, but this is good. So I've pulled these off, and I've got them on a piece of color cardstock now so that you can see the white border around each one. And where the where my black ink line maybe is still showing just a tiny bit up here by his ear, and you can barely see it, I'll just take my paper snips in and trim that off. But now I can use these in a dimensional piece, pop them up on Stampin' Dimensionals. So that's how I cut out stamped images that don't have coordinating dies using my Brother Scan and Cut. You might be wondering why I don't just use the lines of the stamped image and cut around those. Why do I draw a separate line? And the answer is, on this particular stamp set, you could do that because all of the lines are solid lines. So I could have just cut around the solid lines of the stamped image and created my offset to be a positive 0.04 instead of cutting inside my drawn line with a negative 0.04 offset. But not all stamp sets are like this. This stamped image from the Flight of Fancy stamp set illustrates what I'm talking about. This image has a very sketchy appearance with a lot of broken or single lines. And if I tried to use the stamped lines to cut around, the scan and cut would make a lot of zigs and zags and jagged areas. Another consideration is what I call inlet areas. An example of this would be between the reindeer's front legs. He has one leg lifted, so that creates a little inlet area there. And the scan and cut, if I asked it to just cut around the stamped line, would probably try to cut up inside there. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on how close the opening of the inlet is. So if I draw my own contour line around the stamped image, I can control where the scan and cut is going to try to cut. And typically, I don't like to get too detailed with the cut, and so when I draw my contour lines, I don't usually go into the inlet areas. So those are the two reasons that I choose to make my own contour line. Working with sketchy outline images and just controlling where the scan and cut's going to cut and where it isn't going to cut. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at foggybonnet@gmail.com. Thanks, and I'll see you again next time.